our talk today is going to be about hard work won't make you rich, but here's what will. Well, here's the thing is when you're working and you're exchanging time for money, you see this like 2x kind of vision, right? You see, I'm making 100 grand, but if I was making 200 grand, then my life would be different. I'm making 50 grand, but if I was making 100, making 250, what it doesn't matter what it is. It's like our brains see this like linear, like uh, in a linear view is we just work harder, get a raise, work a few more hours, something like that. And most of us aren't lazy. We're exhausted and feel stuck when we're in that position. You've been sold that more hours equals more wealth, and that just isn't true. If that were true, construction crews, nurses, they would own the banks. They don't. Owners do. And what I mean by owners is owners think differently. Owners don't think X, they think X. Like Dan Sullivan says in his great book, X is easier than 2X. And the reason is that when I think I just have to work harder, I don't want to work harder. I think I just have to put more hours in. I don't want to do that. But when I have to rethink my thinking to think, okay, I want to go from 100 grand to 1 million, I can't just work 10 times harder. I've got to get innovative. So let's just start where we start with the 2X thinking and how that looks and why it's kind of a trap. It's really what I call the operator trap. So we're going to talk about for each one of these things. Part one, we'll do 2X thinking, the operator trap, and part two, we'll do 10X thinking and the owner leap. Now, this is all going to tie back into how we get wealthier without working harder. So we're going to go focus, mindset, problem, fragility, example, and stats, right? Okay. So when you're thinking 2 times thinking, or you're in the operator trap, and you could, when you're in the operator trap, what I mean by that is you're the owner operator of your business. You could be working a 9 to 5 and be the owner operator of somebody else's business, right? Or a cog in somebody else's business. But the focus is preservation and incremental growth. I just need a little bit of growth, a little bit of progress. And I'm cool with that. I understand that. But the mindset is, how do I double what I already have? Which we just talked about. The problem is you stay in the same system. You're not changing anything. You just work harder, save harder, squeeze out marginal gains. It's just not exciting, not like leveraged life. And the fragility, your income depends on your alarm clock. Stop working and wealth stops. Your income stops. That's why we have disability insurance and all of these different things. That's why AFLAC exists, right? So, if you think about it, the example is I'm going to work overtime. Just save 10% more in my 5K, and you have that limited upside, and you're capped by hours. Hours are a form of time, right? So here's the stat for you. The median net worth of employees is approximately $132,000 net worth. Owner operators are 3 million. That's not 2X, that's 20X. So 2X is defending the castle, somebody else's castle. 10X is building the kingdom, right? That's the way to look at it, is it's totally different. So let's talk about 10X thinking. What I like to call the owner's leap, or the owner shift, for everybody that's read the book, is the focus is on transformation and multiplication. And what I mean by that is you can't work harder. You've got to come up with something else. You got to find out ways to use other people's time, other people's money. You got to get innovative to make that transformation, and then multiply, not add, but multiply, right? So your mindset is, what would make everything I'm doing now obsolete? Now think about that for a second. What would make everything that I'm doing now obsolete? So drop 80% of what keeps you busy and focus on 20% that multiplies. And if you are a real estate investor, business owner, you know what I mean. There's 80% that keeps you busy, and there's 20% that actually helps you multiply. So again, what are those tools? Other people's money, other people's time, OPM, OPT, systems, and assets. So instead of saving harder, you become the bank, control capital, and buy assets that cash flow indefinitely. That's 10X thinking, right? And the wealthy don't just double their savings, they 10X their leverage, and then they 10X it again and again and again. And Dan Sullivan always talks about like 3-year cycles. even if it's 5 years, if you could 10x your income in the next 5 years, would you be happy with your progress? Most people would. Okay, so let's talk about how IBC and infinite banking, and what I think of that as is the X wealth engine, right? Some of you know the community is going to have a makeover, and it's going to be the wealth engine community. And it's, instead of create tailwind community, it's wealth engine. Like how do we need to build your engine? Okay, so when we look at, again, let's go back and look at the 2X plan. Save harder in a 401k or something like that, and hope the market bails you out, right? Hope that you bought NVIDIA at the right time. Hope that you bought Oracle the other day, went up 87%. Did I know I was going to do that? No. Did you? I hope you did, but probably not. But somebody made a ton of money. In fact, Larry Ellison became the richest man in the world in that day. Will that come down? Probably. So the 10X plan is you control your own capital, borrow against it, use other people's time, other people's money, and fund cash flowing assets. So the mechanics: whole life cash value stays put in infinite banking, compounding uninterrupted, right? So it's just that compound effect without any erosion. Your insurer lends their money to you, secured by your cash value. They love it. You love it. And then you redeploy that capital into assets that produce returns far beyond the loan rate. It's not magic. And 10X isn't magic. It's banking differently. So 10X wealth engine, i.e. IBC, is you can either rent money from the bank forever, or you become your own bank yourself. Those are your choices. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but I want to go back through, briefly, whole life versus universal life in the loan truth. Okay. Whole life, stable, guaranteed base, loans reduce available death benefit, cash value, but won't implode. Okay. You pay the interest, pay the premiums, and the policy keeps trucking. No questions. Universal life is interest crediting plus monthly deductions. If loans plus charges that could outpace growth, the policy can collapse. The infamous over loan risk, all these other risks. And again, remember, I've never seen one of these that are in good shape after 65 years old. And when you're 30 or 35, 65, oh, that might be okay. Maybe I don't need life insurance like Dave Ramsey says after 65. But I can tell you, I might not need it, but I want it. I might not need wealth, but I want it. Why? Well, because I'm going to have an impact on people. Why wouldn't I want to pass money on tax-free to people that I care about or causes that I care about? So whole life is built in a reliable capital warehouse. UL is fragile by comparison. Banks even know it. That's why they will loan 100% on whole life and not on uh, um, universal life. But so the whole life is like a vault, and universal life is like a Jenga tower. Last time I was in Louisville, I went to play golf, and I wasn't going to get to see the Costco kids, and I love all those kids. And they were playing Jenga with one of the young guys that came to play golf with us. And I was just watching that, and I'm like, that's funny. That's universal life. You don't play Jenga with your wealth. You wouldn't do that, because when it all comes crashing down, you don't care in Jenga, right? All right, so here's the playbook to go from 2X to 10X. First, build your warehouse. How do you build your warehouse? Is a non-mech whole life policy with early cash value and not a big term rider, and something that's going to leverage for a long, long time. And it's going to leverage the most amount of money that you can, right? Because remember, in year 10, these are similar numbers. Is I put in $1, I have $1.50 to use. Now, if that's the ratio, how much money do you want to put in? A lot or a little? As much as you'll let me, Jim. Right? So why would you build your plan to be limited in 10 years? You wouldn't. So then you redirect your cash flow. You move business and personal surplus into your warehouse instead of the bank. Sounds simple. You deploy that into assets, borrow against your cash value, buy cash flowing businesses, real estate, other productive assets. Excuse me. And then you recapture and repeat. cycle profits back into your system, repay policy loans, and expand. You don't even have to repay the policy loans if you don't want to. Okay, so you have really a couple of choices. You can stay 2x, where most people are, defend what you've got, grind harder, hope the market doesn't eat you, or you can go 10x, own the system, own capital, multiply your wealth. And 2x is about keeping what you have. X is about multiplying what you have. And 10x is easier if you break away from the herd, controlling the banking function and start owning the game instead of playing it by someone else's rules. And, honestly, this is where we have to take that little bit of leap of faith. And we have to say, you know what? I'm going to do things differently than everyone else. And, I'll give you an example. So I was just up at my favorite golf store, and I called the golf store my crack dealer. I've never done crack, but like it's addictive, right? It's like 10 more yards, one more putt made. It's like, you get addicted to golf, or I am, I guess. And so I'm up there talking. There's a young guy that he's, listened to the podcast. He's read the first book, read Nelson's book, and he's like, Jim, he's still in school, right? He's 31, he's still in school. And he's like, I don't want to work for somebody else. Like, I want to work for myself. And he started talking about indoor golf ranges, outdoor golf ranges. He's in the golf program at the college. And he's like, look, nothing against these guys, but I want to work for myself. And I started talking to him a little bit about the conversation or talk today. And he said, that makes so much sense. X makes so much sense. I'm not thinking about it the right way. I'm thinking about if I could double my income. And I said, everybody thinks like that. So here's this young guy, and there are guys on the call here that are around his age that are way, way beyond this. But I told him, look, you got to give this a good 5 to 10 years. But you got the right thinking, right? You got the right thinking. All you got to do is shift your thinking from 2x to 10x. And now all of a sudden you have to get creative. You have to start leveraging. And when I think back in my life, I building my financial planning firm, right? Well, first I was building my own practice. So I'm building my own practice. I'm out working with blue collar business owners. Those were my people based on my background and the things that I had done and people that I just related to better. So I'm working with those people and I'm like, man, I just need to work harder, just get more clients, take more people to lunch, do this, this, and this. And then I thought, wait a minute. No, what I need to do is I need to own the firm. And then I need to have people working with me, looking for new clients, doing this, doing this. And so I did that for probably another 8 years or so. And then I was like, you know what? What I'm selling these people and telling these people is happening with their wealth isn't actually what's happening. Wall Street tells lies. I bought into them, and my clients bought into them. When I analyzed these reports that said that my clients were getting 9.38% in this given period, and I knew that I had money in there and it didn't grow by 9.38%, I said, what's going on? Well, after expenses and fees and taxes and everything else, the reality was they were lucky to get 4%. Well, 4% didn't work with these numbers. They just didn't work. I mean, you're not going to hit the numbers and have this quote retirement. And thank God I met Nelson Nash, and Nelson was like, that's not the goal anyway. I hate that word retirement. I'm like, what do you mean? I want to be retired at 40. And he's like, no, you don't. This is what you want. And I was like, okay, you're right. So, when I look at this young guy that's working at a golf store while he's in school, just got to change his paradigm, got to change his thinking. And we have to change our thinking that X is not easier than 10X. X is actually easier than 2X. If you haven't read that book or you want like more information about that, I highly recommend Benjamin Hardy, Dan Sullivan, X is easier than 2X. And I personally think you listen to it on Audible because just like Make Bank Without the Bank, there's interviews with Dan Sullivan in between each chapter. Dr. Benjamin Hardy is talking to Dan Sullivan and asking him in-depth questions. So if I were going to read it, I would be reading it, listening to it, and writing down notes, and I would listen to the the interviews in between. All right. Well, that's really why working harder isn't the answer. And if you think about it, it's creating value. That's what you get paid for. If you're an owner, right? So the shift is stop thinking like an employee, stop thinking like an operator, think like an owner and act like an owner. And it's not going to happen overnight. And I know it's scary. I mean, if you like are hitting a roadblock, send me an email or something, and I'll give you some books to read or some systems that will help you start to think more X than 2X, and kind of just get you out of that rut of linear growth. Linear growth is hard. Like, I mean, it's it's kind of like people trying to lose weight or get healthy. It's you could say, well, I'm going to cut my calories by 200 calories a day, but I'm still going to eat a cheeseburger 3 days a week, or I'm going to eat fast food or processed food. And you're like, man, I'm not losing any weight. What's wrong? Or you could say, I got to have 10x thinking. So I'm going to throw out every ultra processed thing in my house. I'm not going to eat processed carbs. I'm not going to eat processed food if I can help it at all. I had an argument with the guy whether lunch meat was processed. I'm not sure I won the argument, but I know the truth. Like, I'm going to change all of these things. That's 10x thinking, right? I work out 5 days a week. I'm going to drink a gallon of water a day. I'm going to do like, that's not just saying I'm going to cut my calories. I'm going to do keto. I'm going to do carnivore. All those things to me aren't sustainable. Like, it has to be, I'm going to change my freaking life, wealth wise, health wise, spiritually. If I get up and I go, oh, I got to read my Bible today, I got to do my devotional. I mean, that's not, how exciting is that? It's not exciting. But if I say, hey, I'm going to do my devotional, and I got 15 other men on here that I need to give some comment to of the teaching based on my experience, based on uh, my understanding of the Bible, whatever it is, and I'm going to share something, they're going to share something, and that iron's going to sharpen iron, and now I'm going to get something out of that 15, 30 minutes every morning, right? Same way with working out. I mean, I had 5 days in a row. I did push, pull, massage and stretching, push, pull. Today's day off. Tomorrow, day off, because you got to recover, right? And then I'll start that cycle again. And I used to think that the massage and the stretching was the day off. I'm just telling you, it's not. My body takes forever to recover from that. Yeah, I love that, Angela. Patience and persistence over time. And this, what Angela teaches people is 10x thinking when it comes to your health. It's not take a pill or take a shot. And I'm not saying that maybe some of those people should take the shot. Maybe they're so obese, they need a boost. They need something to help their mindset. But I wouldn't I wouldn't be on that for more than, I don't know how long you could be on it safely. Maybe not one shot. I don't know. But I know that your body gets used to eating the way that you eat. Yesterday, I took a picture of this and sent it to a friend of mine who's a chef, because he's always sending me like really good looking food. So this was my lunch yesterday. It was the albacore tuna from Costco, the wild caught, just the can drained, some avocado, mayonnaise, um, and then I put some homemade pickles and onions and jalapenos on top. Doesn't look good. It doesn't even sound good, right? But it is good, number one. And number two, it had 33 grams of protein, right? In that little meal, and 15 grams of healthy fat. Not bad, right? Not a lot of carbs in there, but some carbs maybe from the mayonnaise. I don't know if that has carbs in it or not, but not a lot of carbs there. I already had fruit. I had a banana. I had a nectarine. I mean, so I have a hard time with carbs. So like but I love fruit. So that's where I kind of get my carbs from. Yeah, you're probably right, Angela. I don't think there are any carbs in that. Just because it's made from avocado, right? But if you haven't tried that avocado mayonnaise, it's good. I mean, with tuna, you just need a little. And I only put like a tablespoon in there. I think it's like 100 calories or something. But I'm not really worried about calories so much as like the macros, getting that 200 grams of protein. Like right now, I think I'm at like 70, 75. I got it written down, but and I need to get to 200. So I've got I stopped eating like about 6:30, so I got 4 hours or so to get to that. But just like those things, it's the same way with your wealth. And if your health isn't in order, then it's hard to get your wealth in order. And when your wealth isn't in order, it's hard to get your health in order. All of these things are leverage. How do I leverage other people's experience, time, money, knowledge to get what I want and not have to make all those mistakes? Again, I use Glenn as an example. When he cashed in his K, he got into a real estate group. He found a real estate mentor. He like all of the right things, right? And it's repeatable. Everyone can do. I'm not saying to go out and do exactly what Glenn did, but the steps are there, right? Is maybe you want to, and I have a great concept on buying foreclosures, and I'm working on it. And Nick and I are working on it in Louisville. So I'll share with everyone that if and when it works, and we've proven it to work. But it's really cool. You're buying properties at like 50% or 50 cents on the dollar without going to the auction. So I'll share that with everybody as develops. I don't see any questions in the chat. I want you to think about 10x thinking in every aspect of your life. God created us to have abundance in our lives. It's the only way that we can have impact, like we've talked about in the past. And thank you all for being here, and Godspeed. And we'll see you next week.